You need to pay attention now and act quickly, because what's going on right now is crazy and is a picture of perfect chaos in the Bitcoin market. And people are now also talking about the fact that this chaos and confusion is being created on purpose. Are the US selling their Bitcoin now? If so, when will the US sell their Bitcoin? Now there's talk that BlackRock is going to sell more Bitcoin. Or rather, here are the customers according to Arkham intelligence. Then we have a lot of people already calling for a bear market again and saying, hey, we're heading into a massive bear market. We're looking at an even bigger crash. Then just a few days ago, we saw the Tether saga. And now there's actually British HODL saying that people are being cheated out of their Bitcoin. Robert Kiyosaki says that the market is manipulated. Tom Lee says that the market is manipulated. And that's why it's important to act now and stay cool. That's the most important thing, to stay cool here. Because we keep seeing these turbulent times in the Bitcoin market, where everything is bundled all at once. A whole lot is happening. And it's really important to stay cool here. Because fundamentally, nothing has changed with Bitcoin here. We still have 21 million Bitcoin. The blockchain is still working, 24/7. Everything that's happening here is just on the surface. There's just a lot of new stuff and a ton of uncertainty right now. That's also really, really important here. The coins in the US are still pretty much stagnant right now. Yesterday, there was a reporting error at Arkham Intelligence that I mentioned in this video. But right now, the coins are actually stagnant here. So we do have the approval for the sale, but the sale isn't actually happening yet. So in the process. And the question is whether the coins will be sold before Trump's inauguration or if it's going to drag on even longer. We also have some really, really interesting things. This is really, now we can change everything, some really, really interesting statements. Because there's now a new statement from BlackRock that makes it very clear why we're not in a bear market right now and why 2025 is still going to be a very, very bullish year. I mean, things could definitely go differently, but I'm still very, very positive about 2025. And not just me, but also people from BlackRock and even Matt Hugin from Bitwise is saying, hey, if the US government sells 6.5 billion in Bitcoin right now, then that's really not a problem. Because first of all, the market can handle it. If the US government sells 6.5 billion in Bitcoin right now, then that's really not a problem. Because first of all, the market can handle this. So the market can absorb the assets. Maybe not in one day, but maybe in a week or two. Or it can easily be absorbed like that. There won't be any massive ultra crash or anything like that, a Godzilla crash or something like that. There won't be anything like that here. But we have the opportunity to let the whole thing be absorbed from the market. It's probably not all going to be sold at once, right? And secondly, he says here, the Trump administration is going to buy the whole thing back. So he's pretty much convinced that a Bitcoin reserve strategy is coming from Donald Trump. Because you all need to consider one thing. What does Donald Trump want? He definitely prefers it when the Bitcoin price is low, because then he can much more easily present himself as the new Bitcoin pro or as the Bitcoin president. Because then he can clearly say, hey folks, look, Bitcoin has really struggled now. Now I'm stepping in as president. And now everything's running smoothly again. I don't want to say that Donald Trump is manipulating the Bitcoin price, because there were actually people who said this here. Donald Trump would also make sure of that, because it would actually suit him just fine if the Bitcoin price goes down. Well, no, I wouldn't go that far. Originally, I actually thought that this could really be an attack from Biden or something like that Trump wants to sneak one in here. But if you really think about it a little more closely, it's actually a lot cooler. When the Bitcoin price is low, when Donald Trump comes in, then he has a much higher upside potential that he can tap into. America's messy, but Trump could benefit. For America, it's obviously a mess. But if you just look at the person Donald Trump, then it could actually be an advantage here. Even if it seems like a disadvantage at first glance, that the Bitcoin might be sold here, maybe before Donald Trump's inauguration. American HODL even posts here that it is now 100% safe, that Donald Trump's strategic Bitcoin reserve will come relatively early in his term, because he's just counting on it, that Donald Trump is striking back. Donald Trump is also known for his fight, fight, fight slogan. Donald Trump doesn't see this as a defeat or an attack, or maybe he does, but he strikes back and doesn't bury his head in the sand. He isn't depressed about it and could see it as an opportunity to establish a strategic Bitcoin reserve. American HODL says it's 100%. And here, he might not feel depressed, but rather see this as an opportunity to actually establish a strategic Bitcoin reserve now more than ever. So here, American HODL is saying it's 100%. That this is all happening, even if you have to look at it very, very critically. And I don't know if this is meant to be taken 100% seriously or if it's actually a joke. Because in fact, the probability for a strategic Bitcoin reserve has now dropped on the betting markets. We're now only at 27%. What's also really, really interesting, at the beginning we were really, really high. Then we got corrected downwards again. Then we were back up relatively high at 40–45%, but now we're here. After the whole US situation, it's actually dropped back down to 27%. And then we also have these panic news that fit into the picture here. All the chaos that BlackRock is selling off now. Whenever BlackRock sells, something always happens. Panic in the Bitcoin market. Of course, not for the people who have been in this for a long time, but only the people who let themselves be scared off. Because BlackRock usually doesn't have many selling days. I don't know, maybe it's been about 10 days or so in total, where BlackRock has sold. You always have to point this out again. The customers of BlackRock are selling, yeah, here. It's not BlackRock itself that's selling, but very, very importantly, it's always the customers who are selling through BlackRock, who might have gotten a bit uncertain. And now, according to Arkham intelligence, we actually have another outflow day. And then we actually have an interesting insight here. And it's British HODL who says how many people are currently being scammed out of their Bitcoins. Maybe even the US government, right? He says that the US government is being scammed out of the Bitcoin. But also all the people who are panicking and selling right now, who are joining in on this panic sale. And that's basically exactly what I meant here. Just stay cool. And don't let yourself get rattled. Because he says so too. British HODL lariat off. People are often gullible. And by that, he obviously means that the coins are flowing from the weak hands to the strong hands because they let themselves get rattled. I mean, that doesn't quite match his statement because actually, Arkham intelligence has shown here that apparently BlackRock is selling Bitcoin, or the customers of BlackRock are selling Bitcoin. So Larry Fink can't have collected the Bitcoin with the BlackRock ETFs here. That's definitely not right. But it's really about the main point here. Larry Fink is just a metaphor for big players, big whales, and so on. They sometimes use situations like this to fill their bags. Robert Kiyosaki has said that too. Big players, big whales, and so on. They sometimes use situations like this to fill their bags. Robert Kiyosaki has said that too. And also Tom Lee, that the big players, BlackRock and all the others. Wall Street is trying to bring FUD into the market. So uncertainty that they really let rumors pop up here. That you stay under 1,000,000 for as long as possible. You can still buy Bitcoin with US dollars. That's basically the accusation here. Robert Kiyosaki and Tom Lee. I'm always a bit skeptical because manipulation is always a matter of definition. Yeah, you could say, for example, that the Bitcoin market is being manipulated. But you can also see it simply like Michael Saylor, who just says, hey, it's just the normal market forces, and everyone has the chance to spread FUD here. To spread. Everyone has the chance to just dump billions or millions of dollars worth of Bitcoin into the market, even at night. And of course, that creates what? Chain reactions. It creates panic in the market again, and that can lead to massive sell-offs. And then people can get shaken out really, really quickly. Or here, some liquidation zones are being used to trigger cascades down or up. So what can you generally take away from this? If you notice for yourself that you're feeling really, really uncertain, that the whole situation is really getting to you, that you feel really, really uncertain, that the whole situation really gets to you, that you start to panic, that you might really get a bit flustered, then you can definitely say that you might want to scale back your allocation a bit. If you're really struggling with the volatility here, then you clearly know that you're overexposed. That means no one is forcing you to go all in here. I mean, you can do that, but then you really have to understand what's going on here. What's important here is what's new and what the fundamentals of Bitcoin are. And the fundamentals of Bitcoin, they never change. It doesn't matter how many videos I make here. Of course, they might change a little bit here and there, but fundamentally, the basics don't really change. And in the end, that's the important thing to understand, because that's how you can also handle it here. Just ride out the biggest FUD and chaos when you understand, hey, Bitcoin is censorship resistant, capped at 21 million. No one is going to shut anything down or flip it around or whatever. It's just news that drives the price, because all the, let's say, uncertainty comes from the Bitcoin price in the market. When the Bitcoin price goes up, we only see the craziest news. And when the Bitcoin price goes down, then all the, let's say, uncertainty news comes back in, which makes people feel uneasy and then drives the Bitcoin price even lower, because people are panic selling. But there's also a very, very interesting assessment. Now, there's a BlackRock employee here who is actually talking about the potential for 2025. And why he is bullish on Bitcoin and why there are still very, very high Bitcoin prices in the pipeline for 2025. He doesn't mention the prices exactly, but he gives the reasons why it could be very, very bullish in 2025.
How does a new regime affect crypto?
Connect Bitcoin and Ethereum to the election. Consider a broader view. Bitcoin and Ethereum and some of the recent price movements are tied to the presidential election. And I actually think you need to widen the perspective a bit more and look at the bigger picture of the general election. What happened with the Senate? What happened with the House? No matter the party, you saw a ton of politicians winning seats who came out in support of crypto. And so, really, across different levels of the federal government, you're seeing just much more support for, or at least kind of anticipated support for these assets.
He says, first of all, because everyone is basically attributing the whole Bitcoin rally just to Donald Trump and the Trump pump, he said you really have to look much deeper. There are so many senators, so many people here, in the Republican Party, but also in the Democratic Party, who are now advocating for Bitcoin. More and more new players are coming in, more new people, even from Trump's team, who are opening up to Bitcoin, forming the crypto team that's now being created around Donald Trump. And so on, more and more players are getting involved with Bitcoin, both at the state level and at the federal level, jumping on the Bitcoin bandwagon. More and more players are getting involved with Bitcoin, both at the state level and at the federal level. And that's why you really have to pay attention. Jump on the Bitcoin bandwagon. And that's why you really have to pay attention, that the fundamentals are much deeper here. It's easy to say that only Donald Trump is responsible for the pump, and that already sets a very, very solid foundation for 2025. But listen further.
What does that mean? On one hand, it means that you can get a more conducive regulatory regime for digital assets. You can have more clarity how to use digital assets. You can have more clarity how to utilize the institutions that you can use. And I think that this clarity and the potential for regulatory rights can really be very positive for these assets in terms of modern appreciation. We obviously have to wait and see, but the initial response was definitely optimism about the election results.
So he clearly stated that there are very, very good movements happening. There's better regulation, more clarity, and all of this casts a very, very positive light on 2025. And we can really be excited now. How the whole rally continues. You really don't need to panic right now. You don't need to let all the stuff drag you down right now. But you can actually just keep pushing through here. There was actually a CNBC reporter who made a statement about this. He dropped that on live TV. And they were just talking about the general macro situation and so on. And blah, 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 you can't have it all. And the crucial point is what he actually concluded from the discussion, with a somewhat negative attitude towards the yes. I'd say a bit of a light Bitcoin opponent here says, or someone who's a bit pessimistic, take a look at what they have to say, especially regarding the big drivers.
Especially since I'm not against the private sector and everything else. When you express these economies and recessions,
the private sector is not what triggers inflation.
Joe, when you express these economies and recessions, you're not just losing the current standard of food, but also the future standard of food. We are in a very good position.
3% loses the future standard of food. That's prob.
After 1:30, 3 is what I said. Up to 3% IS. What I said.
You're at 3. You're 3% high end.
As long as the inflation expectations, they're stable, you can navigate better.
Buy some Bitcoin. Muhammad, too.
So they're discussing here, how should the economy move forward? Are we lowering the interest rates? What are we doing? Are we stimulating? Yeah, the commentator is a bit skeptical here, and all that, just solving everything here by printing money and so on. He just said, hey, buy Bitcoin. This is the better solution here. And that's why I'm putting a link down below for you to 21 Bitcoin, the easiest way to buy Bitcoin in Europe. Here you can still get up to 20% off with the code Bitcoin Hotel. Regarding the fees when buying Bitcoin, let me know what you think about the current market situation. Have you already sold in a panic? Or are you taking it all pretty chill? Peace out.